We have one more presentation. Get our logo guy out of here. With a presentation by Eric Sullivan and Councilmember Hamilton regarding the proposed city logo slogan, requested by Councilmember Hamilton. Mr. Sullivan, if you would, please state your name and address for the record. And Ms. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Eric Sullivan.
Yeah, give me your address. Give me the business address.
Oh,
we ain't going to come get you, man. Yeah, I think we. Yeah. Oh, my. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. All right. Last time we were here, we were talking about the logo, and you guys wanted us to go get some community input. So I'm just going to kind of breeze through this and talk about the logo and the logos that we've been working on since August. Okay, good.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for a quick update for council and the general public, this is a process that we started over a year ago, and it was the city manager creating a branding committee. Council asked the city manager to help us to rebrand ourselves for not only a brighter look, but also to upgrade a professional image. And we want to, let me rephrase that, to upgrade our professional image. So this is just the first step in us moving forward in that process. With that committee, the representation on it was all of the entities that agreed to use the logo. And so some of those entities are the Port Arthur Chamber of Commerce, the Port Arthur Economic Development Corporation, of course, the City of Port Arthur. Who else am I missing?
Visitors Bureau.
The Convention and Visitors Bureau, and also the Port of Port Arthur. All of these entities agreed to use this logo that council agrees on so that we can show a cohesiveness throughout the city. Right now, we are using the logo that you see on the back behind the daises, but there's also an additional logo that is still being used by the city, and it's the slogan on it is "Where Oil and Water Mix," and it was one that was adopted by the city back in, I think, 2007, but it was never implemented. It's on page 2. Just scroll down a little bit, please. Thank you. This is it. And during that process, an organization, I believe from the Tennessee area, was who created this logo for the city of Port Arthur. So we want to make sure that we have a collaborative effort through all of the entities in the city, and we're on the same page to implement and roll out at the same time, so that we're not using 2 or 3 different logos that are being used right now to represent us.
All right, if you go to page 1, and I've just kind of did a little research on the current logo that you have here. I think it was designed back in the 70s, and basically, and I don't want to critique the logo, but it's a logo that's going to be hard to transform into other entities and executions. The one we designed, it's more of a modern feel. We had a lot of items that you guys wanted in the RFP that we filled out, and you wanted the logo concepts to be water, oil and nature, cultural, railroad, ship channel, Port Arthur MLK Bridge, manufacturing, connecting the community, and pride.
All that.
All that in one logo.
So anyway, we did that's why we did so many logos, and we worked with the committee, and this is where we are today. And as you can see, the cost that was involved with this logo, and then that was the research we did on the rebranding effort for the logo that you guys did for the where water and oil mix, and you can see that there. So I think it's a pretty. Next page is the page we. These were the logos that we had narrowed it down to, and then with the committee, and then on A3, you'll see we made some suggestions from the community that they wanted to try to see it in blue, the text. So we took some of those recommendations and just wanted to show you today. Page 3 is the slogans. The slogans were the slogans that we kind of narrowed it down to. The slogans haven't changed. They're the same as they were. We're opportunity docs, people power possibility, and people power opportunity. The next page, just to refresh your memories, that was just the logo in use. Just some various ways the logo would be used: embroidery, decals, business cards, possible banners. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, this logo that we created was a logo that you could take those circles apart if necessary to represent each different organization. To go to what we did with the community, we worked with obviously we worked with the City Port Arthur Branding Committee, and we reached out to citizens of Port Arthur for feedback on the city's rebranding efforts. This community outreach was included in appearances by city council members on local TV and radio programs and newspapers, as well as social media posts directing Port Arthur citizens all to the website for feedback. We even made the Houston Chronicle, and they were directing people to this site. As you can see below, I made a list of everyone that posted it or wrote a story or anything that we went on live. And I think we did a good job of getting that word out there. And I know that there was a lot of representation on social media and on the internet in news stories. The feedback from the site on the next page, on page 6, it's hard to get feedback from citizens. And when you have to put your name and your address in there, a lot of people don't want to say. So basically, the feedback we got a positive was about 36. No opinion was 4. The no opinion was basically they were complaining and the negativity about the logo that we did in the past. Okay? And that's the feedback we got from the site. But most of it was positive. I know you guys are interested in moving forward. If you do pick a logo, basically what's the process and the estimated cost? Obviously, we entered a contract with you guys to design the logo. Now, we do offer these other things, and I've kind of put up an estimated price here together tonight. Basically, below are some estimated costs that will follow through on the logo once approved. It's items that we recommend, but it's not items that you have to do immediately. And basically, there's a setup and delivery. That's all the aspects of the logo setting up to you don't have to come back to us. Everything will be on files. Brand standards book is very important. If you do move to a logo, you want your brand standards books to be given to all the departments so they know how to use a logo, use it right, use the logos in the right colors. And that's important in branding. I mean, we're an advertising agency, and we handle all different types of businesses. And the branding for your product is something that you want out there, and you want it done right. Yeah. Letterhead envelopes, I'm just guessing on a 5,000, and basically that total was $39.85. Now it came to a per vehicle and a per person. So I came up with prices, and these prices are all based on Port Arthur businesses. I went to the Port Arthur businesses that we use as vendors for signs, shirts, vehicles, and they came back with this pricing, and I think it's very competitive. The business cards, obviously, is $55 a person. Vehicle and equipment, we found a vendor willing to give us 6x9 for 1,000 stickers, total of $673. That's a lot of signage that you could put over. The vehicle, the professional logos on per vehicle for the sides, for the trucks, is about $55 per vehicle. Now, he was a lot higher, but when I told him the amount of vehicles that we might have, he came down considerably. Obviously, polos, hats, T-shirts, you can see the price there, and long-sleeve dress shirts. I know that I'm coming up with these because I see people wearing them, and that's why I think that would be a transition. Basically, I took those, and I based them on a price, a quantity of doing 100, because I really don't know how many you guys are going to do. So basically, it came to about $18,000. Is there any questions?
I do have a light or two. I want to thank you, Mr. Sullivan, for the work. You know, again, working with a government entity, it takes patience. So we appreciate your patience and your understanding, definitely. The logo that we came up with as a committee, I just wanted to make sure that council knew that last week we sent over the preliminary logo designs. So if there is something that council wants to come together also and have a submission to add to what the group has done, then we figure it out together. I think it'd be a good thing if council wants to be involved. Now, before I was on council, if you guys had already delegated the responsibility to a committee, I understand, but I understand there's been council members that have asked how we were going to proceed, and they had different input that they wanted to give. So I just wanted to put that out there, that we did email this past week the other, I think it was 30 designs, something like that, that we narrowed it down to these last few. So please go back to those other 30 designs. If you have ideas, let's get a council idea together, and we can add that with possibly our committee, what they've come up with. So let me get to these lights. Councilman Lewis.
Yes, thank you for your work. But my feedback I've been getting, why we want to change. We like the logo, what we have. That's what they're telling me. Why change? What are we gaining? Oh, and you say this current in use, this design is 70 years old, 1970? That logo there was similar to this, but that logo up there now it's only been there maybe less than 15 years.
I'm not sure I understand.
That logo there,
Yeah.
it's less than 15 years old. And what's in place before then was they had an old logo, but they went away. Mayor Summerlin, the one had it changed, went to the palm tree and looking through a porthole. Okay, it really was dull. Okay, so what happened was I initiated bringing this logo back, and I got the support of the council, and we added the sailboat and the art. So this logo is really, and I've been talking to employees and city employees and throughout the community. I like the logo that we have. What are we gaining by changing it? Is it going to help us to make better decisions? No. What is it going to do for us? That's the kind of feedback I've been getting.
Councilman Albright.
Thank you, Mayor. I've never received these 30 different things.
You didn't? Okay. It got sent.
Okay, it was sent on November 23rd to each council member, and it was sent to your Port Arthur, Texas.gov emails, just to stay in line with where we're supposed to receive our work information for here.
Okay, well, that's all great, but mine hadn't worked in years, so.
Well, maybe we can get IT to help you out on that.
It hadn't worked in years.
Yeah, they were emailed.
So in the email, the process, a little more detailed information, the process that I shared at the beginning of this presentation, that's included in that email, in addition to all of the logos that East Sullivan Advertising shared with the committee, asking for council to provide feedback, and also asking that you share it with your family, friends, and constituents so that they can provide that feedback to us on the website. And we understand that a lot of people may have discussions on social media. It's totally fine, but we are making an effort to keep this very organized and professional. So whatever feedback is provided that we're going to be following is going to be some that's directly emailed to a council member or provided on the website. And the website is www.portarthurbranding.squarespace.com. And it will be posted on I'll request a link on the city website. It's Port Arthur branding.squarespace.com. If anyone has any questions about that website, you're more than welcome to email me.
Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem Scott.
Thank you. My question is to the city manager. City manager, I think I spoke to you before about putting together the cost of what would it cost for uniforms for our employees, and how much it's going to cost for these stickers to go on our trucks, a total amount of what it would cost for the city. I think he came to an estimate about 100, he based it on 100. Okay, we got 800 employees almost, right? How many employees we got here?
650.
650. So we need to be in line with what we got. 100. That's so. I would like, city manager, for you to give me a breakdown on what it actually would cost to put this logo in every areas we need to put, including letterheads and what it's going to cost for us completely as a city.
Yes, sir. You have here on the last sheet, and Eric and I talked at length about this, and I knew that was a concern of yours, so we did a little discussion about it. There is some cost. I'm not going to disagree with that. What he showed here was basically, 100 of the type of the quality above. It's about $18,000. I think what we would do is we would roll this out over a 3 to 5 year period, gradually do new vehicles first, start with the newer vehicles and work our way into the, first, the 2013, 14, 15, 16s, and work our way backwards towards the older vehicles. As employees' shirts wear out, we'd replace those. Hats as we replace those. Letterhead business cards as we replace those. You're probably looking at, if it's 100 for all of the above, you're probably looking at probably, a $50,000-$60,000 commitment over a 4 or 5 year period. So that's kind of where we would
over 4 or 5 year period.
We would unfold it as budget.
So you're talking about over $200,000. That's what you're talking about.
No, sir.
You said over 5 period. $56,000 a year.
No. Roughly $18,000.
I'm talking to the city manager, man.
I would say as a total, we're probably looking at $50,000-$60,000 over a total amount over a 3 to 5 year period, depending on how we unveiled it. Okay.
All right. Again, I appreciate for the numbers, city manager, and I know one thing. One of the first, our number one priority I heard from citizens has been streets. So that's a priority. That's the number one priority. So we need to make sure that we as a council members remember what the first priority is. And when we come up with what we're going to do with the streets, I have no problem with doing other things. Okay?
Yes, sir. And Mayor, if I might add, some of these costs, although we didn't break them down in the list for the city council, some of these costs are considered marketing and tourism costs that we can use the hot text for as well. That is not actually coming out of the city's general fund.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, city manager.
Councilman Richard.
Thank you, Mayor. City Councilwoman Hamilton, I appreciate y'all have done a really good job on working on trying to get the logos and trying to beautify the city. You and Mr. Sullivan, so we appreciate that. I appreciate it. Again, I'm in support of change, and I like the city to grow, and I like the city for us to grow together with that change. But our priority mainly is streets. My constituents in District 4, they're more concerned. That's why you didn't get a lot of feedback concerning logos, because the feedback that I got, what are we going to do with streets? Let's do a presentation on streets. Just tell the citizens about how we're going to perform this. Let's do city manager. This is what the citizens want. And I think that should be our priority. And then we start working on with the logos, if that's the case with the city. I'm a citizens-driven councilman, not council-driven. So I respond to my citizens, and that's the feedback that I'm getting. Let's get the streets, let's get it prioritized, and let's see exactly what we're going to do, the cost, and how we're going to go about doing that. Then if that's what my constituents want, logos, then we'll change. I'm for it. Until then, I see streets first. Thank you.
Councilwoman Moses.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Hamilton, I think the question I wanted to ask, you said you've been working on this branding. How did this get started? You all started this, you said, a year ago, if I heard you correctly. and it got started. If you would repeat that for me.
Yes, ma'am. It was by instruction of City Council. We gave direct instruction to the city manager to create a committee to rebrand the city of Port Arthur. And that's exactly what we've done.
So the City Council, thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Excuse me, wanted to say thank you. You've done a great job with the logo and rebranding moving us forward. Thank you for updating us. But I wanted to get for clarification, you said that basically the City Council gave you a directive in getting a rebranding done. Was that done by what, resolution, or how was that done? Directive?
It was discussed during the hiring process of the city manager, and then through meetings and conversations during executive session and during committee meetings, we gave him instruction to follow through on that. In addition to when we brought the resolution for the city manager to enter into a contract with E. Sullivan, it was brought up then as well, and council voted for us to be able to move forward with this process. And that's how we started the most recent duties with the branding committee.
Okay, so you're given instructions to do that. And manager, oh, he left.
He left that.
Okay, I had a question for the manager.
What? Okay.
Mr. Johnson may be able to answer.
There he is.
He's coming back. And manager, with the concern of the costs, you said that most of the costs can be taken from hot tax money, so it would not come out of city money. So that would not interfere with the money that we're working on for street repairs at this time. We are currently working on the street money. Presentations are coming forward on streets, and we have a plan for that. Am I correct?
You are correct.
So this would not harm our city budget and getting us streets, the program for the streets being worked on, and all of the financing for that.
Portions of the hot tax can be used for it, not all of it. And we haven't determined what could be and can't be, but it is considered a tourism-related expense. So, yes, we are working on getting the roads to you. In January, we're going to be presenting an entire list of roads and road priorities to council so that we can then begin to implement council's plan to get those repaired.
Okay, so we have a plan for roads. Roads aside from a logo that you said that, again, that $50,000 over a period of 3 years, 4 to 3. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm still a little bit baffled as to why we can't move forward with rebranding our city when the money will not come from streets and will not take away from prioritizing our streets. We have our streets is number one priority for every council member on this council. We've been working on it very diligently. We've been working on it very hard. The staff is working on it. Streets is not even considered and us taking away from preparing and getting ready for our citizens and making sure streets are repaired. This is rebranding. There's budgeted for you. We've told you a year ago to get it done. I don't understand the holdup as a council member that's been here for a year. I don't understand if we told you a year ago to get this done. I'm really baffled as to why we can't move forward. I really apologize, Mr. Sullivan, for having to come back here this many times to deal with such. It seems like we can't take care of something so minor that we can move on and get this accomplished and get it over with. I really do apologize to you for that. But somehow maybe we can get together and get this done quickly and move forward with the city.
Thank you. Councilwoman Frank?
I think Councilwoman Moses said it all. She did. But I appreciate the hard work and all the entities that put into this idea, because it just wasn't just the two of you all. It was a committee, right, of all the entities.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank the committees that have worked with you all too.
Thanks for all the
EDC and to the to the who are those EDC?
Again, those organizations are the Convention and Visitors Bureau. They have been very, very gracious and diligent with working with us. Also, the Port Arthur Economic Development Corporation, the Port Arthur Chamber of Commerce, the Port of Port Arthur, and of course the City of Port Arthur. And there were other entities that were not a part of the committee, but because they saw how we've been working together, they also wanted to be able to participate in the process.
Okay.
So we're, and just one other side note, I truly, truly understand the concern about cost for any council member, it's our responsibility, our fiduciary responsibility, to make sure that we keep track of our money.
Right.
Unfortunately, we are blessed to have a CVB, and majority of these costs will be taken care of through that hotel motel tax fund, in addition to something as simple as the template needed for our water towers. So that is definitely a benefit to us. And the total cost of what is just being shared with us today is money that we're going to be spending anyway. We're going to buy new business cards, regardless. We're going to purchase new T-shirts and uniforms. And every employee does not wear a T-shirt or uniform or a hat. In this cost also includes patches that will be needed for, I may not be describing the word right, but the NOMAX uniforms needed. And also the patches needed for fire department and police department. And so we've also taken that into consideration, that they don't even use the logo that we have. So technically we have more than 2 logos that we're using to represent the city of Port Arthur. So we were taking all of those concerns into consideration throughout this process, and it is still less expensive than what was spent about 10 years ago of the $72,000 that we never even did anything with.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, can I ask, or City Manager, what can we do? What's next to move forward? And this is a presentation. We have to come back with a resolution of adoption. Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Lewis.
Yes, what was presented to the city council was to go with it and look at different designs, and it was going to be paid for out of the hotel motel tax, and we're talking about less than $7,000. That's what we're talking about. Okay. Now, since then, they've done the work and you've gotten paid. I'm pretty sure. Since then, well, you haven't gotten paid yet. Well, they'll talk to the manager.
We haven't done anything yet.
Well, anyway, since then, a $1.5 million deal has come on the table. Rose Hill. That Rose Hill has come on the table. If you put it on the ballot to redo that, citizens will probably vote it down because of the priority on the street. Now, Rose Hill got an opportunity to be refurbished. That's going to be funded, proposed funding coming from for the 108 loan, and the service that's going to come out of the hotel motel tax. That is a higher priority than the logo. So, and I'm going to say it again. I have not gotten any positive support for the change. Haven't gotten any. On the, I don't play around the internet because that thing takes a life of its own. Who in their right mind want to fool around with that, okay? But I think we got our priorities in the wrong place. Rose Hill is coming out of that same funding. It's a higher priority than this logo.
Councilman Richard.
Thank you, Mayor Freeman. Councilman Hamilton, you mentioned something just a minute ago which caught my attention. You said if this was to go through as the council votes on, you mentioned that we're going to buy shirts anyway, we're going to change cards, we're going to do these kind of things. So that cost can be absorbed over a process. See, I've never heard a process. This is the first time. But changing the logo, that may be a concern for the citizens themselves if that's what they want to do. But if this process does take place, like you just mentioned, buying new cards, shirts, and hats, because we're going to do it, we're going to spend that cost. There's a possibility, but I can see a green light there. But at this time, until I get some more information on that, I'll talk with you and discuss that with you, and I'll consult with some of my constituents, and then I'll get some feedback, and I'll let you know, what we've come up with. But at this time, I'm still priority, still streets for me. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, my question was to the city manager based on the cost. And again, yes, the cost has been discussed. But I was going back to streets because, like I said, that's our first priority, not based on where the money is going to come from by taking up these logos or doing this logo, what department is going to hurt or is going to take money from the general fund. That's not what I was talking about. Okay, What I was talking about is, city manager said he has a street program. I have not seen it yet. He said he's going to have it in January. Citizens have been talking about streets, streets, streets. I have not seen a program yet. So I don't want to tell citizens that I approve a logo, but I still haven't approved. I have a street plan in place that's going to fit what we need done here in this city. So based on what I'm talking about, it's basically prioritizing what citizens have discussed with me over and over, okay? And that's streets. And city manager, you gave me the quote of what it may cost, and we all are council members up here, and we need to respect each other's opinion because I ask certain questions and I try to discuss what citizens have prioritized as streets. That's my concern, and that's my right to be able to say what's important to me, and what's important to me is what's important to the citizens. That's streets, and that's why I put streets first. And city manager, again, we need to find out about your street program, share it with us, and get it to us, because I'd rather discuss what it's going to cost and what street's going to be fixed. We got Blue Bonnet still in place, nothing done. Okay, Blue Bonnet, we need to get it done. Okay, thank you very much.
Councilman Swati, please. We definitely, if you could, we definitely can't speak from the audience, ma'am. I will get to you, but it's not about discussion. It's just a presentation today.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe we on council are kind of getting ahead of ourselves on this matter. This council put forward an initiative to rebrand the city with a new logo. And we put a budget on that, which was about $7,000. That whatever cost was to come up with a new logo should cost less than $7,000. Many people worked on this. There was a committee, CVB, EDC, Chamber, all these different people worked on this, putting together different ideas, suggestions, opinions. Sullivan's company came in and started doing the designs and everything. At least as a council, as a professional courtesy to other business owners that are doing work for the city, thank them for the work that they did, first and foremost. Moving forward, the initiative was to create a new logo. Now, as far as it's very good and business-wise to think about how much this is going to cost when we implement this logo. What all costs are in this, the cars, the business cards, all that stuff. I get that, but right now with Sullivan's company is only the creation of a new logo. Until we don't decide which logo this council likes, this man in front of us is not going to get paid. And they've been working on this for 11 months. So, the implementation part, this council or any future council that comes forward can talk about how soon they want to take on implementing this new logo. How are they going to put it in the process? The money, how much money is it going to cost the city to implement a new logo? But right now, we're just talking about deciding on a new logo. Councilman Lewis feels like we shouldn't change the logo. That's his personal feeling, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But other council members have different opinions about this. And the initiative put forward was from this council to rebrand the city with a new logo. That's exactly what they've done and they've placed in front of us. Now, as far as, bringing topics about money for streets and, money for implementing the logo, these are all discussions that come afterwards. Right now, we either need to decide whether we're going to stick with this logo, we're going to pick a new logo. If we're going to pick a new logo, which logo is that going to be? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Swati. Councilman Lewis.
The easiest and sensible way to settle this thing, we got an election coming up in May. Put it on the ballot. Put it on the ballot. That's a referendum. Put it on the ballot and ask the citizens. You got all these folks meeting in these back rooms and nobody knows who they are. Put it on the ballot and ask the citizens, yes or no. Do you want to change the logo? Yes or no. That'll settle it. Come in May. It won't cost anything extra. You got to have an election anyway.
All right. I have no other lights. Councilwoman Hamilton, I know you had a comment.
I appreciate everyone's input, and we respect everyone's opinion. We, again, want to thank E. Sullivan Advertising and every entity that is represented on the committee. Again, I just want to state what the website is. Please, whether it's in favor or not in favor. We welcome your feedback at www.portarthurbranding.squarespace.com and or email. You can email me, tiffany.hamilton@portarthurtx.gov.
Thank you. And then also for our citizens that were worried about us doing streets, as Councilwoman Moses said, streets are of the utmost priority for us. It's top of the mind for all of us. To us, everybody just went through Thanksgiving and I get to cook during Thanksgiving, and I thought my friend down the way was going to talk about his cooking skills, but basically it's cooking is what we're doing up here. The main course for all of us up here is the streets in the city of Port Arthur. That's the main course. Now, it may take a little longer on the main course because we got a little side of greens going on, and that may come off the stove a little earlier than the street program that we got cooking for a couple of years. So please know that you got some people up here that are cooking on behalf of the citizens of Port Arthur, and we know that the streets is the main course here in the city. Please allow us to put a few side dishes on the stove so we can do other things here in the city of Port Arthur and get them done at different times as they come off the stove, and we can make some things happen. So I just wanted to add that. And then also about this logo that's behind me, I think it is antiquated. I think that it doesn't represent the greatness of Port Arthur. Where we're going in Port Arthur, it doesn't represent it in my opinion. So I'm going to leave that alone. And then the shield, too, the All-American shield, that happened in 40-plus years ago. So I would love to get a committee together for us to apply again for the All-American city, because us holding on to something for 40-plus years, I know we can do better. And that's the new Port Arthur we're going to. Thank you all for your time for getting here and get me outside of myself.
Oh, please.
You don't want to see that. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. We appreciate you. All right, now we've been hopping around. Well, let's get this last presentation, if you don't mind, while we're on the presentation. A presentation regarding the new water treatment plant requested by Council Member Hamilton, who I guess Mr. Arsenault standing up about that. If you could approach the microphone, name and for the record and address, please. Thank you.
Sure. Good evening. Ron Arsenault with Arsenault, Wilson and Cole, 2901 Turtle Creek Drive in Port Arthur. And yes, I was asked to give the council a briefing on the status, basically, of the new water plant construction. The good news is it's not going to be an engineering discussion tonight, but we are going to go over some of the highlights and
pull it a little closer, Mr. Arsenault, if you don't. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. We'll go over some of the highlights of where the project is. So, as you know, the city's surface water treatment plant is being upgraded to a treatment capacity of 40 million gallons per day. Currently, before that, it was a 20 million gallon per day plant. The expansion, as most of you know, is because of our great industrial partner, Cheniere. And they're going to need a tremendous amount of water. The city will be selling water at 2 points, one on Pleasure Island and one in Sabine Pass, to their facility. And so this project began back in October of 2014. For the plant work. There was some other work going on before then. And originally it was anticipated to be completed around September of this year. Because of some certain decisions that were made by Cheniere and by the city with our recommendation, the project now is being pushed back a little bit to completion by about the end of April 2017. Now, the overall program is basically constructed in 2 phases. Initially, the Phase 1 contract, it's now about 98% complete. And the work, in essence, was to build a new 4 million gallon capacity clear well, which holds treated water for distribution. And that adds and works in conjunction with your 2 million gallon clear well already at the plant. The project was also to provide firm pumping capacity of 40 million gallons a day into the distribution network. So there were some new high service pumps working in coordination with the existing high service pumps. All of that work value to date for that phase one is about $12.8 million. And there are a few minor items, relatively minor items, having to do with the startup of the pumps, installation of some chemical lines, and doing some fine grading and seeding. And that project will be closed out fairly soon, we suspect. Now, the phase two project, and let me backtrack, we divided it into two phases because the review period that it was going to take the TCEQ to review the complete project plans was going to be far beyond the schedule that Cheniere was looking for. So we made provisions to break out that clear well and the high service pumps to make sure they had delivery of enough treated water initially for their first train or two of operation. And so once that was separated out, we could get that constructed, and TCEQ approved that very rapidly. So the remainder of the project was being reviewed by TCEQ, and it took a little bit longer than everyone suspected. So Cheniere was kind of faced with two options: either accelerate the construction schedule to kind of an unrealistic rate in order to meet their schedule, or to go at a normal rate and see if they could adjust what they were doing on their end. And that's what they chose to do, is to let it be a normal construction period rather than accelerating. And of course, that was going to be very costly too. And so because of that schedule change, the target's been moved, as I said, to the end of April. And so our firm is, of course, managing the project for the city. Our contract ended in September, and we're still on the job. We're doing our job, and we're getting very close, I believe, to getting resolution internally to re-up the time and the budget to finish out the job. We're in discussions with the staff and with Cheniere, so I think all of that is coming to a rapid conclusion at this time. The phase two work is valued at about $14.8 million, and it adds several treatment systems, including the clarifiers, chlorine dioxide, contact basins, filter galleries, sludge thickeners, electrical distribution, instrumentation, all of which are in various stages of completion. And just for both projects, the general contractor on the project has been Alco from Beaumont. And really, that's all as a general report and discussion. That's really all I have to say. If y'all have some questions, I'd be happy to go into the detailed engineering design of every treatment unit out there if y'all want to. Okay, never mind.
I do have some lights, Mr. Arsenault.
Yes.
But I heard you say we're building this up to a 40 million gallon a day capacity?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Wow. How much of it, when Cheniere gets up to all 6 trains, I think? How many trains?
Right.
5 trains?
And actually, what was happening at the time when we were doing the water system model for the city to look at how their operation would affect the distribution network in the city, because of some high volumes of production that y'all had at your plant, especially during the dry season when we had a lot of waterline breaks, all those distribution reports are filed with TCEQ. And once you reach a plateau or a line where you're about 75%, pumping 75% of your capacity, TCEQ says you need to be starting a plan to improve your facility. So the city was probably facing having to do this anyway. And then Cheniere came on, and because of what they needed and what the buffer that the city was going to need, I think theoretically we were looking at somewhere around 12 to 15 million gallon a day upgrade would probably do it. But it made more sense to basically mirror the existing plant, which is a 20 MGD plant, flip it over and put another one right next to it and work together. And that's what Cheniere agreed to do.
Wow.
So,
Awesome. Councilman Lewis.
Yes, all this cost and expansion is paid for by Cheniere. Am I correct?
every penny.
Correct?
Every penny, yes, sir.
Good, right, good. So we're getting an expanded unit of plant. How many trains in place now? It was 6 or 8 trains up to 100%.
I think they're going to have 6 trains.
6 trains?
5 or 6.
I think it's 6.
6.
How many is in place now?
Well, I think 2 are operating, 2 are close to being commissioned, and the last 2, there's really no site prep even going on for the last 2.
So by 2020, I think it's when this should be completed and up to 100%. And it's projected, correct. I don't know, it's projected that they will be buying $12 million worth of water annually, approximately $10 to $12 million. That's what is projected.
Yes, so that's very close to that projection.
And the city manager, that money will be going into the water and sewage fund, and so you'll be pulling out the subsidies. We're subsidizing the water and sewage department now, so that money will stay in the general fund. We can do other things with it.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
That'll be
main course.
That'll be money to drive the bond issue and pay for the services and the debt on the streets and drainage and stuff like that.
No.
You don't disagree with that, do you, city manager?
Well, it's a very long and intricated process, but in a very short answer, yes.
Yes, you disagree or you agree?
Yes, I agree with you.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilwoman Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Arsenault, for coming to give us an update on that. I think it's always important that we stay on top of this entire process. And the only other question I had is with the TCEQ process extending of what we have, Cheniere is well aware of that and making sure that they're going to keep that money coming to pay for the additional time.
That was already included in that design, yes. I think, you were at 20 million gallons a day capacity, and at times, because of demand and because of major water line leaks, the city was pumping at the very limit of its capacity for quite some time. And so once you start doing that, once you're at about, I think it's up 75% capacity, TCEQ says you need to start making plans to upgrade your system to take care of future growth. Right. So y'all were probably being faced with doing something in the next few years from that point. And because Cheniere came in and we said, well, this is what we have now, this is probably what we're going to need to upgrade to because of the TCEQ requirement, and this is what they need. And when you bundle all that together, it was less than $40 million. But it made more sense, like I say, to just build the plant as a mirror of what we already had.
I understand that part. I'm talking about the timeline of the project.
Okay, the project timeline, it was primarily the review of the detailed design plans that we prepared for the expansion. Generally speaking, a project of that complexity might take 4 to 6 months by the agency to review, and it actually went substantially longer than that. And so that's why we knew we were going to break out that first phase so that Cheniere could get water earlier, and that the plant work we were facing having to possibly accelerate the construction schedule by maybe allowing the contractor to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, or 24 hours a day, or whatever it would take. And that comes at a very high cost. Of course, they're paying for it. But after they looked at it, they decided that their operational and startup schedule and when they were going to need water for testing and things of this nature, they were able to kind of relax the schedule that they gave us. And so we went back to just a standard type working contract. When I say we, I mean the construction contractor. Right. And so they're well aware of that, and it's actually cost them less money in the long run.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor, just as a side note for us, Mr. Arsenault spoke about us reaching that capacity regardless of whether the Cheniere project came into play or not. Us reaching that capacity, I know because it's been presented to us before, has a lot to do with what our water lines are like and what our water we were losing is what I would say. Water that we were losing. So we have to make sure that we are taking care of that. And I know we've talked about it before. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but we have to make sure that we are doing our due diligence in protecting and replacing our water and sewage lines so that we're not losing this water and having to continue to grow when we may not need to. It may not be necessary at that point. Thank God that we did have this project coming and we're prepared for it. I just don't want to be wasteful.
City Attorney?
I just wanted to make sure that in this conversation that we stick to just talking about the water treatment plant. We're getting into some little bit on contractual issues, and we want to stay away from that and just talk about the plant itself.
Okay. So,
Councilwoman Moses?
Well, my question was, I heard Ron say something in his conversation in your presentation where you said that your contract had ended.
Yes, ma'am.
So we can't talk about that. He mentioned
No,
that.
we just posted to talk about the status of the plant. We can't talk about any contract issues, not between the city and Cheniere or with any other entity in the city. We're just talking about the plant is what I understand is what's posted. But we cannot get into any contractual issues up here.
That
unless we're posted to do so.
Well, I'll talk with you, Ron, afterwards about
thanks.
the contract ending.
Very good. Thank you.
Councilman Lewis?
Yes, for clarification, the expansion and the water treating plant that we're going to be selling water to Cheniere, that is a separate circuit, correct? I mean, we're going to be sending water directly to Cheniere.
Well, no, it's not a separate circuit.
Well, I mean, the line has already been put in. A separate line has been put in directly to Cheniere.
Yes, they have service lines. Two of them on Pleasure Island.
Mm-hmm.
They have a 24-inch line that goes under the lake, and a 12-inch line that goes under the lake. At Sabine Pass, at your standpipe, there is a 16-inch diameter service line. There's meters at both sides, at both locations, and so that's their point of service is in Texas, in Port Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as distribution lines of the city that get the water to those points, they're your lines. They're not dedicated lines for Cheniere.
Okay, what I'm concerned about, when you increasing your capacity and efficiency and you're exposing these older lines to this high volume, you know, that tells me we're going to have some additional maintenance, some blowouts and what have you, ruptures.
Well,
that's what I was concerned.
You'll have the volume. You'll have the volume available. It's not that you're going to be pumping 40 million gallons a day, but the volume certainly is available. The one thing that we have to be careful of in town, especially in the Sabine Pass area, and that is that because of the long distance and the operation of that standpipe, you know, at the Gulf Pump Station, which is right there near Valero, I think when the water leaves the line at that station, it's on the order of 90 psi, which is much higher than system pressure in the city. But by the time it gets to the standpipe, it's around 45 to 50, which is normal pressure.
Okay.
But those are things that we had to really focus on to make sure that there weren't going to be potential damages to your network pumping at high rates and high pressures. But that is a legitimate concern.
Mr. Arsenault, I have no other gates, but just no other lights. Arsenault gate, all that. It's a long night.
There's a new sheriff in town.
Don't mad at me. Don't be mad at me. Just for our audience to purpose, just so they understand what's going on. We have Cheniere that's in Louisiana, and they didn't have any way to get water to their project that they need millions of gallons of water for. So they said that, you know what, City of Port Arthur, we're going to donate $50 million worth of infrastructure. This was when it first started. And I just talked to Mr. Johnson, Dr. Johnson, a week or two ago, and he said it's up to $100 million that they've actually just donated to the City of Port Arthur for water towers and pipes and everything else for us just to pump water to them in Louisiana. And then they're buying it at retail rate. I hate to say retail, but at retail rate. So it's been a windfall for the City of Port Arthur. Extremely blessed, and we're happy for it. And like you said, we were going to have to fix the treatment plant anyway, but since this came along, they just donated $100 million for us to do it. So we're thankful for it. Thank you so much for all the hard work and whatever we can do to make sure that the process goes on board and comes online when it needs to be so they can buy that water from us. Let us know.
All right.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I have one.
Oh, yeah, I did not want to get into contracts.
I'm sorry.
Okay. We don't want to get into contracts unless we're properly posted. I have I can put something on executive session and go into that in a little more detail.
Sorry about that. I was trying to give some clarification. All right, thank you. You know what? I have my speakers, Mr. Field. I was looking for Miss Marshall. If you would be patient with me, let me get the staff out of here that's been here all day, and if I may have something on the consent agenda. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Mayor, we have citizens who have been sitting here all this time to speak. I think you should give them first. The staff here works for us, work here, okay?
Okay.
So I think you should take the citizens in consideration and let them do their part, what they've been sitting here for.
Yes. Yes, sir. But we also have citizens that are and other people that are waiting in the audience for consent.
I know, but you're not following the agenda. The agenda, these people are first, right?
No, not necessarily, no, sir. We don't have to. This is just a outline for us.
I know it's an outline, but we should be following the outline, right?
Yes, sir.
No, you don't have no power control.
If you would, you may not pull something on consent. We could have already had consent agenda done. If you just allow me real quick to see if there's any lights for consent agenda. We'll go ahead and pass it. We'll get to the speakers ASAP. I'll just go ahead and get the staff out of the room and the people that are waiting on something for us to pull on consent. We have numerous people here that are citizens and employees.
I understand that.
So,
and we have an agenda.
Yes, sir.
We're not following.
I promise I'm going to get to it.
We're not following the agenda.
Okay.
That's what I want you to remind you. We're not following the agenda.
Okay. All right.